Right, let's now bring in Wits governance expert, Professor Alex van der Heever, to weigh in. Prof, thank you so much for your time. So ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa, they're saying at the weekend that the extension of the monthly grant is non-negotiable and that that necessary budget must be allocated come February, saying, of course, that this is part of the party's pro-poor stance. When you look at the numbers, I mean, it means that South Africa now has 4 times as many grant recipients as individual taxpayers. I mean, is this sustainable? Just give us your comments on this, Prof.
Yeah, so firstly, I'm glad that the President has given that commitment because in particular in relation to the SRD grant, which supports people who are effectively not employed, adults who are not earning, and would otherwise be in a desperate situation. Now, it's important to note that the amount of money that people are receiving is a large number of people, but the amount per person is relatively small. So whereas taxpayers actually earn a considerable amount relative to them. So it will work out at sort of right about 3.5 to 4% of GDP, and as a total expenditure, which is affordable. But it is important to note, as the other commentator was pointing out, that we do need to have economic growth and we do need to increase the number of people who are actually employed. This type of intervention is a crucial one for all countries. All countries have solid systems of social protection. It doesn't turn you into a country of just giving handouts. It is an important way of balancing the sort of income risks in society, and you have to have it for a coherent protection framework for everybody. But we also have to have economic growth going forward. It is sustainable, but we do need to grow. And unfortunately, those policies don't appear to be working at this point in time.
So essentially what you are saying is that, we shouldn't then have those fears of this becoming then a welfare state, because it is a necessary step that the government has taken over the years, because, I mean, as he said, they started off with just over 2 million people receiving a grant in '94, and that obviously has progressed given just the economic standing of the country.
Yes, so all countries, so if we had to look at all of the industrialized countries, many of the peer countries to South Africa, all of them have systems of social protection. I think the term calling things a welfare state, calling a country a welfare state is a misnomer. It actually misrepresents what is going on. All countries in the world are welfare states. They have strong income redistributive programs in place, and they're a necessary counterbalance to the normal inequalities that you find in the distribution of income. South Africa is an extreme case in point in that we have a large number of unemployed people due to a number of economic reasons. But you cannot abandon the population to unemployment and extremely low incomes. You've got to basically protect and build from there. But this should not be the only solution. You have to do it together with strategies that basically unlock economic growth in the country. And these are important. Eskom, Transnet, PRASA, all of these have failed the economic growth potential of South Africa. And a lot of policies need to change to get growth going. But it's not a trade-off between this kind of social protection policy and growth strategies. You do them at the same time. We're just not getting one to work.
As you know, the World Economic Forum is taking place next week. A study by the World Economic Forum in 2023 had state collapse as its #1 risk in its national risk list. It now has state fragility in its top 5 national risk list. I mean, what does this really mean in the context of South Africa and South Africa's position as it heads to that forum next week?
So South Africa could be argued as showing a marginal increase in fragility. So fragility is really where you're starting to lose sort of key social cohesion functions in society, which can really cause a society to unravel and result in increases in violence and unrest and social dissatisfaction. So it is absolutely important to protect social cohesion. But for that to happen, as you pointed out, you need functional government. You need governments, when they're going to spend on infrastructure, that the money actually ends up in infrastructure and not in somebody's pocket, which is what's happening in South Africa. We basically have to develop, we have to get those expenditures going. We have to stabilize our urban settings and housing. We have to get that to work. And if our government can't function, those things fail, and that results in social segmentation and a decline in social cohesion and a general dissatisfaction that people have in their society. And that's where you start to see an increase in social unrest and fragility, which is demonstrated by increases in systemic violence.
Now, as the country heads into one of the most crucial elections this year, Prof, and just in light of what you are currently saying in terms of what a country needs to do and a government needs to do in terms of servicing its people, how worried should we be then, in terms of the coalition government leading as a reality, in as far as what is going to be happening post those elections?
Yeah, I have very little concern with the idea of coalition governments, provided that they are sort of competent coalitions. The greatest concern that you'd have, when you see an increase in fragility and a breakdown of the democratic processes, is that elections cease to be democratic. And there is election rigging and a reduction in accountability in government. And so at the moment, one of the advantages South Africa has is that it has got a powerful constitution which allows for a link to be created between the people and the government. And the moment elections start to break down, that link breaks down. Coalition governments work all around the world and are very effective in keeping that connection between people and what government does, and holding it accountable. In other words, that you stop people from stealing money and getting away with it. Those countries work. Countries where the resulting fragility has resulted in a breakdown of the electoral process are the countries that begin to fall apart.